Welcome. For those of you who are familiar with my material, this video is a detailed explanation of the script that I created based off of the core of what Mark Stevens created with his script. He has about 5 clarifications for the judge. I increased that to 16 because of the adaptations that we need to make as a community to counter what the judges in courtrooms have been doing over the last year or two. Now, of course, you can go in and use Mark Stevens' 5 basics, and that will totally suffice. You can totally put all kinds of pressure on them with just that. That in of itself is enough. I mean, that's how I basically did everything when I went to court. But after helping all kinds of people, over the last 3 years, especially this last 12 months, where they're within the judicial training network, they are spreading our tactics, and that is becoming evident in the recordings that I'm getting. And so I've created this new script. Now, keep in mind, this isn't going to make your life easier, okay? If you want your life to be easy, plead guilty, pay the fine, and leave. This is for those people who want to resist and say, hey, I know what you're doing. I'm not a sheep. I'm one of the few and the rare. You're not going to have your way with me, bend me over verbally, and I'm not knowing what's going on, and have my lawyer do my talking for me. No, that's not how that's going to go down. I know exactly who you are, what you're doing, where you come from, and if I wanted to, I could find out where you live, your email address, and your personal cell phone number while putting it all online. We need ways to fight back against their just blatantly, openly arrogant daily barbarism, their breaking of their own rules, their rampant hypocrisy, etc., right? So I'm coming at it from more of an approach of, less anger, less bitter, more friendly, more comedy, for sure, is the goal. For those of you who aren't familiar with my channel, let me just briefly explain what the heck this is. All right. I've generated a script that you're not going to be able to follow it word for word and then get out of your ticket. That's not how this works, okay? This is a framework to build upon your understanding and your legalese fluency to help you comprehend the nature and cause of these charges and proceedings against you so that you may be informed of what exactly is going on, both in common English and in legalese. And when I say that, they really are 2 separate languages, just as if I had said English and Chinese or any other language. All right, because if you can't speak it, you have no idea what's actually being said. So some of this might not make sense to you right away. It's my goal to help explain this as concisely as possible. I know your time is valuable, and to make this as short as it can be while still effectively getting the information across. So let's just begin. All right, more or less, a judge is going to, whether this is a traffic ticket, drug war ticket, any nonviolent victimless crime, okay, where they have no sufficient evidence whatsoever, they're violating due process, you're guilty until presumed innocent, and they're threatening you despite the fact that they haven't even done anything close to the legitimacy required of an actual respectable courtroom. Okay. They come up, hey, case number blah, blah, blah. Please step forward, state your name for the record. Here's the max penalties. Here's what you're charged with. Here's what you can be threatened with. And here's some other things I need to read, maybe real quick. We're here for your arraignment. Would you like to plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest? How do you plead? They may even ask you about whether or not you have an attorney, depending on the circumstance, situation, what you look like, things like this. And that's kind of their intro. It's basically, this is an arraignment. How do you plead, more or less? Okay. Now, everything I say has a very specific reason. Every word is necessary. We don't want to add anything to it for very specific reasons that I just can't go into. I could really go over hours and hours and hours and hours about the details and nuances of this script, but I can't, right? It doesn't make any sense, especially on YouTube. So just know that adding to it is at your own risk. Taking words away is at your own risk. There's a purpose behind every word, and I'll try and explain that to you as quickly as I can. All right. Many of the things that I'm gonna go over here are based on the failures of the past. Okay, these have been shown to be successful in real-world courtrooms and to be effective. And if you don't understand why, no, it's probably why it exists. The reason why it exists is because 10 other people in the past failed and got stuck on that specific moment. And so we've built in a counter to that trap. Now, the first one, right off the bat, that I'm going to mention is when you go into court for any of these nonviolent victimless crimes, we go in there with a unsigned guilty plea. All right, you have a little formal template, you put in your own information. It says such and such, I intend to plead guilty to these charges, here's the date, and a blank line for your signature. It's not yet signed. Okay, and the reason why we bring that in is because the courtroom is about to try and delay you. And of course, we don't want that. We want a meaningful hearing where we get to make progress, which means this gets to get over right here and now today, so you can leave with your freedom and never have to be bothered by these people again. We bring in the unsigned guilty plea to show constantly that our intentions have always been to plead guilty, pay the fine, and leave here today, even though that's not what we intend to do, because they don't cross their T's and dot their I's and file a proper case. It's actually a legalized crime that they're getting away with. Okay, more on that later. So just know that's the only thing you come in with, other than your recording equipment, some pen and paper, maybe a laptop case, carrying case, whatnot, to keep your equipment in, and this unsigned plea of guilty and your wits. All right? So you've got this unsigned plea of guilty in your hand. Judge, my intention is to plead guilty here today, pay the fine, and leave. In fact, I have an unsigned plea of guilt here in my hand, ready to go. And maybe you can add something here like, I've got a job, I can't afford to come to this. Put something in there like that if you'd like to help further the point that this is a real inconvenience for you. Okay, and then you continue with the script. I simply have a few clarifications of some documents the prosecution has provided, and then I'll plead guilty, pay the fine, and leave. Now keep in mind, judges, according to them, don't have to answer your questions. So we don't ask questions. We ask clarifications of what the courtroom is doing, what the court is doing, what the judge is doing, however they want to phrase that, and what the prosecution is doing, or what they're claiming. So we don't have our own independent questions that are just off in the ether. We're actually clarifying what it is they're doing and claiming and accusing you of, and how they're going about it in this hearing/proceeding. And that's all to be informed of the cause and nature of the charges and proceedings against you. Now, if you watch my previous video about the 10 Amendments, the Bill of Rights, a lot of these phrases will be in there. Most of them are in the 4th, 5th, and 6th. So get very familiar with those amendments, because that's where a lot of this directly comes from. And the reason why we get such easy yes or no answers on a lot of this is because it's directly out of the Bill of Rights, and every judge knows that. And because they have this, I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic thing, whatever it is in their head, this oath, they look really bad giving you no's. Okay? The whole goal of every clarification in here is to ask a catch-22 type question, which means, if you haven't read the book, they're darned if they do and they're darned if they don't, which means if they say yes, they're in deep trouble, and if they say no, they're in deep trouble. And so the only thing left they can do is try and distract you, either with lies or threats of violence. And when they do, we point out those lies and threats of violence, and naturally and politely and respectfully transition right back to our path and the point where they're at, putting additional public pressure on them, which is political pressure, which is where all the power is to bend their will to ours, so that we don't have to bend over for them. Is that pretty clear enough? So that's the end of one. It's just to state your intentions. We're not here to plead guilty. Our intention is to plead guilty here today. Pay the fine and leave. All right? I'm going to try to keep this short. Let's move on to number 2. Before I begin, is this hearing being recorded on audio and video by that camera right there above you? Wherever the camera is. If there's no camera, say by any camera at all. Okay, you got to be able to adapt this a little bit to your circumstances on the fly. Come prepared. Look at this courtroom before it's your turn to get up, see what's going on. Now in the parentheses here, by the way, I color-coded these, obviously. Okay, the gray one is just the intro. The red ones are about recording, and you'll see in the future I color-coded them, and I'll explain that to you. So you adapt a little bit. In the parentheses I put, if not, how is it being recorded at all? And if not, why not? You get that answer to that question. I require a recording be made of this hearing. And I just, you could go, hey, I have a cell phone. We can do audio only. It won't film anything. I'll just set it here on the desk. So the point is, they're going to shoot you down. The point is, you're trying to be respectful and polite and convince the public behind you, like you're just asking this really nice question. Do you really expect me to rely on just my memory? I need to know every single word that's said by any lawyer or judge in this courtroom so that I can continue to defend myself if you should try to unnecessarily delay me from my intention to plead guilty, pay the fine, and leave here today. This is the whole point, right? Now, you're going to hear me throw out a lot of really slick responses and counters and sentences. It's because I'm very good at this. I'm not even humble about it. I'm a ninja about this, all right? There's not a lawyer or the judge on the planet that can beat me in a fair and meaningful hearing verbally. If you've got independent fence sitters in the back, I will convince them. And the judge and the authority will not. They will lose, all right? So the whole point is to immediately put pressure on and let them know accountability, transparency, and that's in cameras. They're going to shoot you down. You're convincing the public through respect that right off the bat, the judge is a violent bully. Okay? All right. And judges see this in the eyes and the faces of the sheep because they don't hide their expressions. And we have a ton of muscles in our face because we've evolved to be very expressive in our face to communicate our intentions to those around us in a community. All right. 3, how soon can I get a copy of the recording? Because they're likely going to say to you, if they're recording at all, if they just say no, then of course we go, well, can I make it? Oh, no, you can't, and then we move on. But if they say yes, and you can go down to the desk and get a copy of that, it costs $25. It's available in 1 to 4 weeks. You got to let them know and request it, and they'll contact you by phone, and blah, 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 blah. All different courts have different rules to this, right? So you hear that explanation, and then number 3, okay, how soon can I get a copy of the recording? If they don't already tell you. And then they're going to say, yeah, you go down to the desk and get it. Number 4, if I do as you say, which is basically, you say number 4 if they've directed you to go somewhere else to get it, and they, at the desk, deny its existence or mysteriously lose it or edit it, who will be responsible and what will be the consequences for that? And of course, the answer you're going to get is, no one's going to be held responsible, and there are not going to be any consequences to them. And then you can get it if you want to. Judge, do they follow your orders downstairs, or they just completely ignore them? Oh no, they'll follow my order. Okay, well, if they don't, what's going to happen to them over it? Now, our minutes on the microphone are precious, and we don't want to come off as belligerent. We don't want to come off as circular or antagonistic or any of these things, and even annoying. We just want to use a voice of logic and ethics to make our point. I'm going to try to replicate that tone for the rest of this video, okay? And try and keep the emotion out of it, even though I know I'm fighting, manipulative liars and worse here. All right, so we're still in the record mode. Number 4, who will be responsible? What are the consequences? Number 5, because I can't memorize every word said here today, and because I can't write every word down, I'll just set an audio recorder here on the desk to ensure I have a proper recording of today's events. That's not a clarification or a question. You just move right the heck on. If they don't interrupt you, you just move right the heck on. And that would be to number 6, okay? I put number 6 in blue. The blue color is going to be like our introduction and our first clarifications that just establish, is this going to be fair or not? And most of them are based off of the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments that don't actually do anything good for you. And some of them are from Mark Stevens. So it's just kind of the introduction type clarifications, and it goes like this. I've seen judges contradict each other and their own rules many times, deny due process, and abuse their power with no accountability, so I'm just wondering if in this courtroom, do I have a right to a fair and meaningful hearing? Now, you could just say, do I have a right to a fair and meaningful hearing? If you're uncomfortable with getting confrontational with this stuff I wrote before then. But see, here's how I would do it. So, Judge, I've seen judges contradict each other a lot, and their own rules even, many times. They deny due process, they kind of abuse their power. There's no accountability, as we all know, so I'm just quickly wondering, you look like a fair judge, right? In this courtroom, do I have a right to a fair and meaningful hearing here today? And people behind you hear that, and they're like, oh, that sounds reasonable. This guy has seen judges do other things. I have too. We can all relate. Judges get psycho and make crazy rulings with no accountability. And he's just asking for a fair and meaningful hearing. Is a judge just going to give an easy yes? Because that's what we want. If they say yes, we're setting a trap. Because we know in the future, obviously, they're not going to be fair. And obviously, they're not going to have a meaningful hearing. A meaningful hearing means you get to make progress. They don't just get to delay you. And with meaningless nonsense, distraction, lie, rule and procedure, right? We know they're not going to do that. So this sets the trap They have admitted right now that according to them, not according to us, I don't believe in rights because they don't exist, but according to them, in my humble opinion, according to them, we have a right to a fair and meaningful hearing. And they've admitted that. So we've got that confession right off the bat. And we're going to come back to it in the future. Believe that. Number 7. So the judge would say yes. Now if they say no, that's a whole nother video. And I've got awesome counters to everything they could ever say no to. If a judge ever says no, an inappropriate no, boy, I love it. That's music to my ears. I just start drooling. I'm like, awesome. I'm gonna just embarrass this guy with his own words. Here it comes. Like, for instance, I'll give you one quick real-world example of what I did, and then I'm not going to give any more examples because it takes too much time. But here's a real-world example of just this first clarification. Do I have a right to a fair and meaningful hearing? Okay, this is with Judge Freitas, Freitas, in the Hilo, Hawaii courthouse about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I had been putting pressure on this judge. They've been playing musical chairs, but they've had me go to so many hearings, I'd run into Judge Freitas every now and again. So here I'm in Judge Freitas. He knows what I do. They've spread the word. They know I kick their butt. Okay, here's my first thing. All right, do I have a fair and meaningful hearing? And he looks at me and he goes, no. And I'd never heard that before, in person or on any recording. And I was just, so I get this little smile on my face. I go, all right, do I have a right to a fair hearing? And look, direct eye contact, sitting right at the desk, like 15 feet away, direct eye contact, and stunned silence. He didn't respond at all. Do I have a right to a meaningful hearing? Is what I asked after about a 3 or 4 second pause. Still stunned silence. Nothing. I just sit back and because I'm just trying to wonder, which of this do you have a problem with? Is it the fair or the meaningful? Do I have a right to a fair and meaningful hearing here in this courtroom here today? Yes or no? And he ended the courtroom. We're going to set this to April 16th at 4 p.m. recess. Bang, and he left and went back into his chambers. And that was the end of that hearing. Like, I'm not joking around. This stuff is so powerful, it will have a judge running from you if you can pull it off because of practice, right? It doesn't take much, it just takes words, but it takes confidence and courage, and they got to see that in your eyes. They got to know, you know exactly what's up. You're never going to believe them, even if someone put a gun to your head, and there's nothing they can do about it because they are hypocrites and legalized criminals, and they know it. And because of the internet and live streaming cameras, and you could be recording this, and they have no idea, they're afraid of that. They don't want to be the first judge to go viral in their community on YouTube because they're going to get smashed down by superiors for going viral. Why can't you keep an orderly courtroom and just get these people to pay like the rest of the judges can? Okay, that's a pressure on them too. They got a pension. They got a 6-figure paycheck, keep in mind, for doing nothing. And quite often these traffic court judges are kind of bitter that they're never given more responsibility and sent up to the circuit courts, or more is on the line, murder charges, assault, rape, things like that. They love the power. The more power they have over people's lives, the more they like it. The higher their status in society and the greater their paycheck. So, all right, so let's move on. That was just one example. I'm not going to give any more. Number 7. Do I have a right to be informed of the cause and nature of the charges and proceedings against me here today? Again, that's out of the Bill of Rights. 4, 5, or 6, you got to know them. You should get a yes there. Okay? Very rarely do I get a no. I mean, if they said no, that's an instant appealable error, and it's for another video. I can't spend all the time going into all the counters for all these clarifications. Just know that we have effective, dead-on, go snap, got 'em level type counters to all of this, okay? And this is just kind of what I do, try to help people on the Discord server. I'll put a link to my Discord server if you want to get on Discord chat. You can contact me there. We do role plays all the time and just go from there. All right, number 8. Will I be compelled to be a witness against myself? This has been tried in court. This is brand new, and I've gotten nothing but no's, which is the answer that we want. Another confession. They're not going to try to compel you, meaning force, violence, threat, coercion, to answer any question that would make you a witness against yourself in criminal charges that they could bring to you according to their rule books. And you can always fall back on this so that you don't have to answer any questions you don't want to. Earlier, you admitted that I would not be compelled to be a witness against myself. If I answer that question, I could be a witness against myself. Are you going to compel me through a threat of coercive violence? Or are you going to leave me alone and let me know whether or not the prosecutor has provided any factual evidence regarding the element of jurisdiction, yes or no, as of yet? More on that later. Let's move to number 9. Will I be deprived of my liberty or property without due process of law? Now, due process of law. Due process is a big term. It's a vague, big, huge umbrella, and a lot of what we want falls under that umbrella of due process, if you're not already familiar with due process. So you're asking, will I be deprived of my liberty or property without due process of law? Now, in the Bill of Rights, it says life, liberty, or property. Like no person charged with a crime or any criminal court will be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So when we ask, will I be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, we're just asking it straight out of the Bill of Rights like the other ones. And of course, I've had this asked, and we don't get anything so far other than no, you won't be deprived. Liberty is I won't be threatened with jail, contempt, and property is I won't be fined or have my property stolen or confiscated from me without due process of law, meaning you're presumed innocent, all the proper charges are filed, everything about discovery has already been provided to you. I mean, I can't go into it, but it's a lot, and it's a good clarification because it's a great confession, and we can come back on them if they ever attempt to threaten us with contempt or be quiet or you're going to go to jail. One more word and I'll throw you in the cage. All right, things like that. Okay, moving on. So number 10 through 14 I put in green because this is pretty much Mark's contribution to my script. Okay, the first two, fair and meaningful hearing and right to be informed of the cause of nature, are also in his script. But this is basically what he puts out there. So I just want to give credit where credit's due. Now, number 10 is super easy. Am I presumed innocent of these charges? I've never heard a judge say no, you're presumed guilty. So that's super easy. And that scores points with the public. If you're presumed innocent, how is it that they're forcing you by coercive threat of violence to appear at this hearing under threat of bench warrants issued for your arrest by armed men with gun who have comply or die authority in their heads to bring you to a cage overnight until some future morning where you can be brought back in front of a judge? That's a threat of violence. And if you're presumed innocent, how are they threatening you with such violence? If they say, oh, this guy's innocent as of right now, you don't threaten innocent people with violence ethically, logically. Okay, you're planting this seed in the mind of the public behind you. And this is the very beginning of the trap, and it's all based on logic, and any 10-year-old can understand it. So am I presumed innocent of these charges? They'll say yes. Then logically, am I presumed innocent of every element of these charges? Now, most judges don't throw a fit right here. They'll give you a yes. If they say no, obviously I'm going to give you stuff in future videos to prepare, or you can just go to the Discord server, but you get mostly yeses there. An element, and just in case you don't know, it's not just like a ingredient in a cake. It's a necessary ingredient. Without an element, you have no cake. A friend explained it to me this way, and many others, and it's the best analogy I heard. And here's another one that goes like this. There are, let's say, 4 light switches in a dark room. In order for the light to come on in the room, all 4 switches have to be turned in the on position. An element is a light switch. So if the element isn't satisfied, the light in the room isn't on. And the light in the room represents a legitimate authority in a legitimate courtroom. Okay, and due process, proper rules and procedures to follow when charging people with criminal charges, right? So that's an element. It's necessary. Am I presumed innocent of every element of the charges? Number 12. This is where you might get some resistance. The first distractions, and you'll have to make your first transitions after number 12 to get back on our path. Is jurisdiction one of the elements of the charges? Okay, once they hear the J word, the jurisdiction word, the judges go, oh crap, here it comes. And they start lying, threatening, and things like this. I won't go into that, obviously, on this video. So jurisdiction is one of the elements. An actual victim, there needs to be an actual victim alleging harm. That's an element. An actual verb, like a criminal act, is an element that should be in place before you charge somebody and threaten them with jail or taking their money or property. And of course, criminal intent. People have to know. That's why we don't throw people with mental, incapacities like Down syndrome. It's really hard to throw that guy in jail for a long time if he doesn't know that what he's doing is a crime. Okay, or if you're in a parking lot, it's a busy parking lot, and you just back up as slow as you can with your van. Somebody isn't watching their child, and a 3-year-old rolls out, runs out behind you, and then gets knocked over by, bumps their head. Have you committed a crime? Obviously not. You didn't even know they were there, right? So it's things like this. Those are elements. Jurisdiction is one of those elements. Before a court can bring you in front of it to impose upon you and threaten you, by golly, it should have jurisdiction. Right? What are forms of different jurisdiction? The UCMJ, diplomats that come over from foreign countries, are they under the jurisdiction within the borders? No, or do they have diplomatic immunity? Right? Judges have immunity, cops get immunity. Tourists, ultimately, depending on what they do, they may or may not have jurisdiction over that. Quote unquote criminal charges filed there. So, really quickly, jurisdiction is one of the elements. So we ask, is jurisdiction one of the elements of the charge? And eventually you're going to get a yes. I've never heard a judge say no. I have not heard that answer yet. Okay, maybe you might get, well, it depends, yes and no, but I don't even know if I've heard that one. Either way, they're just being weaselly, and they know the answer to this is yes. They know it, every one of them. Number 13, then am I presumed innocent of jurisdiction? So see, you're like, am I presumed innocent? Am I presumed innocent of every element? Well, is jurisdiction one of the elements? Okay, then am I presumed innocent of jurisdiction? Of course, the answer is yes, the correct answer. If they say no, they won't say no. They'll distract and give some speech, or, oh, we don't have time for this, and jurisdiction doesn't matter for trial, and, well, you've got the driver's license, and, hey, the ticket's in your hand, right? All these distractions are nothing but distractions because they know you are shooting at the heart of the dragon. You are on target. This is a bullseye, all right? You should get a yes. 14. Okay, if I'm presumed innocent of jurisdiction, then 14. Has the prosecution provided any factual evidence regarding the element of jurisdiction as of yet, yes or no? Now, this question is the biggest one we have. It is considered the meat and potatoes type question. And you got to have it cold memorized. It just comes flying out of my face like nobody's business. I'll never forget it as long as I live, no matter if I never read or said it again for the next several decades. I'd still know this on my deathbed. And of course, that's where the fun really begins, because the prosecution has not filed any factual evidence or evidence, really, regarding the element of jurisdiction. They won't label it as such. They won't call it that. They just don't ever file anything like that because they have to show on the transcript and through the words used in the courtroom that this is actually voluntary. You're actually volunteering to be under this jurisdiction. They're not forcing you. There's no compulsion here. Oh, no. You haven't been coerced. It's all voluntary and informed, the pleas they get. Guilty, not guilty, or no contest, but of course they're not. So they never provide this. In any courtroom I've ever heard, they've never been like, yep, there it is. Now, if you go to a military court, they go, yep, here it is, because you sign a document that says, I'll live under the UCMJ while I'm in the military. And so their prosecutors will be like, yep, there it is. Asked and answered. Done. We're proceeding. Okay, even though that's still unethical because they don't provide you with a lawyer or have you be informed of what exactly they're signing up for. But that's another issue for another video. Has the prosecution provided any factual evidence regarding the element of jurisdiction as of yet? Yes or no? You got to talk slow and calm and chill, like you're just investigating, so the public behind you gets it and gets on board. For all you know, they may have it. We're investigating. Calm poker faces, slight smile. Don't be afraid to guffaw and laugh and snicker at their ridiculous answers. All right. You're going to get all kinds of wild bucking and resistance at this point, but the answer they really have to come up with is no. They have not yet provided it. And keep this in mind. One great follow-up is we don't need to determine the validity of the jurisdiction. We don't need to make a determination at all or even look at it. All I'm trying to determine is, has it been passed yet between the prosecution and the court? Well, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Do I have a right to even know whether or not any documents whatsoever have been passed from the prosecution to the court? Yes or no? Oh, yeah, you have a right to know whether... Okay, do I get copies of those? Well, yes, you're supposed to have copies of everything. Okay, I'd like a copy. It's the only thing I'm missing before I can plead guilty, pay the fine, and be out of here, like I said earlier many times. I need a copy of what the prosecution has provided the court regarding the element of jurisdiction. Has it been provided yet? Yes or no? These are catch-22 clarifications of the fraud they're imposing, and they know it, and they can't stand it, and they have to run from us. All while we're recording, whether they like it or not. So we can put it on YouTube, make it searchable there with the first and last name of the judge, and if we need, we can get their home address, like I said, emails, cell phones, family members, any of that. Not so that we can threaten them. They have our information, correct? They have our information. They are not above us. Why should we not have their information? And in a day with YouTube and Google, number 1 and 2 search engines on all the internet, they're afraid. They're afraid because they know they're mistreating people and they're acting in a completely unethical, illogical manner that steals from people and ruins their lives through jail sentences and more. Asset forfeiture, huge, okay? This is the public and political pressure we are building on that particular judge for daring to try to victimize you through this power game of illusions and nonsense. All right. So if the judge ever gets to the point where they say, no, they haven't yet provided it, we can always try and throw the prosecutor under the bus. That's a whole nother strategy, closely related, of kind of buddy-buddy with the judge to try and throw the prosecutor under the bus. And, these can be dismissed because the prosecutor failed to meet their burden, respond in a timely manner to blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the next follow-up, I put these in purple because these are the closing, right? I then motion and require that all charges be dismissed until such time as the prosecutor can file a proper case and presume this unopposed motion will be granted. Thank you and have a nice day. And you just presume it, start gathering your papers like you're going to walk out and like you just called it and that's the end of it. Of course, they're not going to allow that. Oh, no, stop, right? Okay, and they'll, after threats or distractions to your clarification, your attempt to leave, then number 16, if I had a copy of such evidence, I would have everything I need to plead guilty right now, pay the fine, and leave with my freedom. As part of a fair and meaningful hearing, do I have a right to know whether or not a document being used to file accusations against me has been provided to the court at all, yes or no? And that's just, I put that in there because it's the most effective counter transition back to, has the prosecution provided it? They're going to say, that's for trial. We don't want to determine that jurisdiction. No, that's for a pretrial conference. Hey, you need a lawyer. Have you signed this waiver? Apply for public assistance. I need to make you aware of your rights. Do you understand? Do this? Do you understand this? Do you understand this? Say yes or no. Respond. Answer my questions. Answer my questions. All of this is distraction. All of that should follow after they've already filed a proper case, and because we're questioning and challenging whether or not they have, because they haven't. What we say comes first. We're on our path, not theirs. And if you're skillful and speaking in a way that if all of this was seen in a lawsuit against the judge, even though that'll never happen, and a jury would be on your side, you have all the more power. You must keep a jury in mind. Act as if a jury is watching you. Conduct yourself accordingly. Dress the part. Act the part. Speak the part. You don't have to be the most articulate guy or girl in the world. You just have to be confident in what you're saying because you've practiced, right? You know your deal. You know what's going on. You know what's going on their side of the game too. So number 16 really isn't, is optional, but it's the best option if once they try and clog you up. All right. And then after 16, all it is after 16 is it's like, like bull riding. The gate opens, you're sitting on the bull, it's bucking, and you just have to last 8 seconds. Right? It's going to try this, it's going to try that. You just got to hang on. Except it's not nearly as dangerous or scary. It's nothing but fun. All right? Especially once you realize, oh my gosh, it doesn't matter what they say. It matters what I say. Like they have to be afraid of me, not the other way around. So, and that can happen. And I've seen it happen dozens and dozens and dozens of times with people. So, yes, there are a lot of counters you could learn. They're just the awesome defenses, your armor, the arrows you can sling back at them. All right. There's also 3 transitions that people should know in order to really help them get back on track. One is, of course, to refer back to the intention that you have to plead guilty in your hand. You want to sign. You want to be doing this today. Another is to point to what we call the gun in the room. Anytime they use a bullying tactic or threaten violence, we transition by calling out exactly what they did in actual reality as a threat, asking if they're attempting to coerce you by it, and then bringing it right back to, you mind if we respond? Will you please respond to the relevant issue that currently on the table? Has the prosecutor provided any factual evidence regarding the element of jurisdiction? Yes or no? It's very simple. Yes or no? Right? And then the last one is the prosecutor's failure to file a proper case, which is just pointing to the fact that they haven't provided any factual evidence regarding the element of jurisdiction. There's a couple other counters you can mention, things like, oh, Judge, I'm so happy to hear you bring that up because I do want to get to that. Just as soon as the current issue on the table gets a yes or no question. So was that a yes or a no? sound super friendly to the public behind you. You sound very reasonable, and any kind of distractions, hypocrisy, or violent threats from the judge is going to make them look like a bully even more. It's just all about verbally being slick and friendly and polite, respectful, all that. You can't go into a courtroom angry and da-da-da-da-da-da. If you don't have the public behind you on board, you don't have the power that you need to defeat that judge. And I wish it wasn't that way, but that's the way it is. And it's effective, and it works. So this was my quick intro, 16-point script. Not all of them are clarifications, but there it is. If you've got any questions, you can put them up in the comments. Otherwise, click on my Discord link, click on my previous files, previous videos. Check out my other channel that's got somewhere around 8,000, 7,000 subscribers. It's called Ethical Anarchism Articulated. There are many conversations in that channel that address this, and that channel's kind of a mess right now. I've had to delete it twice, bring it back twice because of life circumstances, and I've only got so many of the videos out of 450 available. Over the next week or so, I'm going to be going through it and continuing to re-add the thumbnails that YouTube took off. They've demonetized that entire channel and will not communicate with me whatsoever. It doesn't matter what I appeal. It doesn't matter what I send to them. YouTube will not respond to me at all. That entire channel is demonetized. Okay, I've never taken a penny from it anyway, but it has like $1,000 on there. They won't give that to me either. All right, they just won't. I know people who have just twice as many subscribers as I do, but they get 100 times the views. So I'm just being restricted in a way that's not even funny. But just so you know, for what that's worth, I don't know. That's just what's going on. I look at the numbers and go, well, that's weird. But I just don't make money off YouTube, so it doesn't matter to me. All right, so Ethical Anarchism Articulated is the other channel. Sorry, be patient with me. I'll get up more and more of those videos. I'll make them public, because right now they're all hidden or private, except for maybe a few dozen. Real key ones, though. A lot to learn there. I'll try to make the rest of them available and make that channel presentable again. If I have enough time, we can go from there. I'm also going to put a PayPal link in the description. Now, don't send me any money. I don't care if you don't send me any money. I'll give you just as much attention if you don't send me any money. It's not about money. But if there are those out there that can swing the $1, $5, $10, whatever the heck, you want me to have more time for more equipment, to do more cop watching, or to have the time to be motivated to spend more time getting that channel current, things like this, build, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. So, but again, I don't care if it's not there. And for those who have already contributed so far, man, I bought a quadcopter with it. I'm doing training with a quadcopter with goggles and everything on it. I've bought a third spare cell phone with it to protect myself with. And people have paid for my time, and I've spent one-on-one time with them. And I have references. They'd be more than happy to be like, hey, this is how Joe helped me, and this is what I think of him, type stuff. So the money's very secondary. It's way more important to have fun and to learn this stuff. So I just wanted to mention it briefly. I hope you got something out of this. I hope it piques your curiosity and you have more questions and comments about it. I'll be in the comments section. I'll be on Discord server. Have a good day, man. That's pretty much all I got. Take care.